Hi, this year Frazer Jones and the SR Group are supporting the UN's observation of International Women's Day on the 8th of March, calling for rights, equality and empowerment for all women and girls. At Frazer Jones and the SR Group, we launched our Belong strategy to support our ongoing journey towards diversity, equity and inclusion. For us, it was about building a workplace where everyone feels comfortable to be themselves and where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. This means we celebrate our differences and recognise the value of varying experiences, perspectives, and approaches, many of which are different from our own. As part of our celebration, I'm delighted to be joined by Ishita Bandyopadhyay, a seasoned executive coach and leadership development expert, to contribute to the discussion. Hi, Ishita.
Hi, Molly. Thanks for having me here.
Absolute pleasure. So Ishita has over 17 years experience as a certified executive coach, guiding C-suite leaders and high potential talent and driving impactful leadership growth across industries. She has led initiatives like the Elevation Experience, which multinational organizations use to advance women in leadership and foster inclusive workplaces. Ashita has also been featured in Straits Times and CNA Asia and is proud to challenge leadership norms and champion resilient, empathetic, and high-impact leadership styles. Ashita, it's a pleasure speaking with you today, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about your perspectives. So, as a starting point, Ashita, why do you think women need executive coaching today?
That's a good question, Molly. And I think today of all times, women need this kind of an executive coaching support where there is an entire catalyst system that is believing in them. Because from the longest time, what we have observed is women, as they grow up their ranks, they also inculcate a lot of self limiting beliefs, which we call sabotage. And the second element is around a constant need for validation. Now, executive coaching is a way to unlock the potential of women leaders where they can truly embrace what they believe in by embracing themselves. Hence, executive leadership coaching is a must have in today's times for women leaders.
And can you share examples of any female leaders you've worked with who've successfully overcome those barriers, particularly in male-dominated industries?
Well, I will, of course, not be taking names, but in recent times, I have had the privilege to work with some amazing leaders who are women and they have grown up the ranks. But at a very senior leadership position, I have actually seen them embrace and turn themselves around like absolute phoenix in the process. And what I've actually noticed that these women leaders have done differently is they have had the courage to embrace their own strengths. What has happened in the past is that most of the senior leadership positions being more male dominated, the role models that are left for people to follow tend to have a more masculine style of leadership. Now, when a woman leader realizes that it is not really a masculine style of leadership that they have to follow through upon to become successful, and they are able to let go of that imposter syndrome which comes in again and again. They are able to embrace their own strengths and truly flourish as a leader. So, those are the kind of women leaders that we've seen absolutely shine through in some of the leadership positions recently.
I see. So, out of interest, what are the key leadership qualities you believe are critical for women in the workplace today?
That's a very interesting question. And I do believe that based on the organization that the woman is thriving in, there would be certain nuances which are different. But if I were to call out three key traits that I have seen in women leaders that has absolutely shown through, they would definitely be around empathy and relationships. That would have been undermined in the previous type of leadership styles, but empathy and relationship focus is something that's consistently coming up as a key strength that women leaders are embracing. Secondly, would be resilience. And who better than a woman leader can understand that? Because through their ability of balancing work and life throughout the various situations that they've gone through, they have consistently encountered setbacks and kind of come out victorious from them. So the women leaders who are able to recognize that and are able to come across as resilient even in business scenarios are definitely the ones who are on top of the charts. And finally, I do think that discipline and consistency plays a huge role, and that gives a lot of conviction and confidence to the women leaders as well. So yeah, it's a combination of empathy, resilience, and conviction that actually shines through for these women leaders who are able to embrace themselves.
And you touched on this a little bit earlier, but how do you specifically support women in developing that leadership presence and that self-confidence?
That's interesting. In fact, when I start off with women leaders in their coaching journeys, whether it's a mid-career person who's kind of looking at shifts and changes that's happening around them, or a senior leader who's embraced this new position, interestingly, I always start off with what I like to call a little agenda. They would always start off by focusing on how do I get this task done? This is not something I've done before. So we start off with focusing on the little agenda. But my job as an executive coach is to make them shift and focus on what is their big agenda in the entire game. They need to look at things differently and they need to unlock their strengths and abilities by focusing on the bigger agenda. So it's a huge shift from the task focus approach to a more purpose focus approach that I typically work with women leaders on. And I see that they are able to feel very successful when they shift it to a purpose focus for themselves.
And just to move more towards your client base and exploring specifically what corporates across industries are doing to invest in women. It'd be really interesting to hear the programs and policies and initiatives that you've seen that have been effective.
Absolutely. So I, of course, both of us understand that this is not an area that has been recently a focus, even with all the talks about it right now globally. Organizations have made have taken various steps to move forward in this area. Uh, Primarily in three areas, I have seen organizations take a deliberate effort. One would be around policy making, around how do they ensure that more women are included in the workforce. Secondly, it would be around programs, say like a leadership development program exclusively for women, giving them that exposure and that support. And thirdly, which is probably, I would say, a little nascent yet, but certain support and allyship programs that have come across. So while policy, program, and support has been three areas where organizations have invested in, I personally notice that it's still not cutting it. It's not really yielding the kind of results organizations are looking at because what they need to focus on is a mindset shift. And when I say a mindset shift, it is not only a mindset shift in certain individuals or um, sometimes we feel that it's a mindset shift on the opposite gender's part, that they should be more inclusive about women, etc. I think the mindset shift has to happen also for the women as they are getting opportunities and they need to feel like they are equal. You know, what hurts me is that when a woman leader realizes that they have gotten a particular position because of a program advantage of based on gender, that's not something that they feel great about. Hence, when we are promoting a diversity focused approach, we need to bring that sense of equality in it. And that's in a way the programs have not been effective because it has kind of created a foundation for uh, inherent inequality, I would say. So the mindset shift has to be more towards feeling like equals.
So, with that in mind, how important is the element of the succession planning and the leadership and coaching element in terms of positioning women for those leadership roles so that they are best placed to take on those positions?
Well, Molly, I'd like to um, argue that succession planning is a necessity for the organization, uh, and that's even beyond the entire diversity agenda that we are speaking about. The possibilities of succession planning increases many folds by embracing a diversity agenda alongside. So the whole idea of succession planning for an organization needs to be to identify the right person in the right position. So it's a fit question that we need to answer. If we are embracing a diversity commitment along with it as an organization, we need to start by looking at women getting um, their grooming support way in advance, not just based on the readiness that they show for the role, but maybe 5 to 7 years ahead of time. Because a lot of time, what we are noticing in terms of the data that we are looking at is uh, at a succession role, while a male counterpart gets that position, say in 5 years, a woman counterpart would get it in 9 years. So there is a lag of those 4 years. And if we are able to cover up on that early on in the career stages of our women colleagues, that's a huge push towards equality, I would say, even in succession planning.
So when we see the success of that succession planning and leadership development, in your experience, how do these organizations benefit from having that diverse leadership team, particularly with in mind women in those executive roles?
That's um, that's something I believe organizations should have inherently. Like I said, it should be a part of the joint succession and diversity agenda for the organization. And I see it coming up as a benefit for the organization in two ways. The first one, I call it multiplicity because earlier, when we were looking at a pool of talent, as we call high potential talent pools, or possible successors, we were probably looking at, say, 50 to 55% of the population available to us in the organization workforce. Now, if we expand it and we truly embrace the diversity agenda, we are multiplying the possibilities to 100% of the workforce. So that's why I'm saying the first benefit is the multiplicity. And the second benefit is it's many folds. It's beyond the organization itself. It's about the opportunity of inculcating a peership approach. Um, and yes, we know societally we have kind of taken our time, and things are still not at par in a lot of cultural situations. But it's the organization's contribution to the society when they are able to bring this equality and peership approach through an initiative like equal succession planning opportunities. That's where there is a huge impact on shifting the mindset in the society as well. Because young children, uh, boys and girls, they see that their parents can be equal leaders in the same organization or different organizations, and that's what they look up to as examples to follow. So that has a huge impact, I think, from a succession planning contribution of an organization to the society. So you have it there, the entire peership approach and the multiplicity for the organization itself.
Leadership and multiplicity. That's really interesting. Well, thank you, Ishita, for sharing your insights, particularly into the value of executive coaching and also just the progress that corporations are making. Of course, this is just one part of a much bigger picture as we strive towards a world where no one is left behind. I'm glad that we're continuing to create role models for the next generation. So we look forward to continuing the conversation throughout 8th of March and beyond. Thanks again.
Absolutely, Molly. Really excited to push this entire initiative forward. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.